Today, I decided to do the impossible, to simulate what it would be like to raise Sonic and Shadow in real life. Not one, both at once. Speed versus chaos, light versus darkness. But right now, in front of me, there are no legends and no fighters. In front of me are two small capsules, left overnight on the porch. One glows with a soft blue pulse, the other with a deep crimson shimmer. They vibrate almost imperceptibly, as if someone inside is taking their first breath. The blue capsule cracks first. A tiny blue hedgehog, barely fitting in the palm of my hand, steps forward and immediately falls onto a soft rug. His quills are still short, his gaze cheesty and amazed. He doesn't understand where he is. He's just alive, and that's already too fast for the room. In a fraction of a second, he tries to make his first dash and crashes into a box of shoes. Cute. Absolutely harmless. Almost. The crimson glow intensifies, and the second capsule opens more quietly. A black silhouette with thin red lines slowly rises. His eyes open not with surprise, but with concentration. He doesn't fall, he stands. Little Shadow looks at me as if he's already analyzing the space. In that second, Sonic joyfully jumps and accidentally knocks over a lamp. The first chaos in the house begins half a minute after their arrival. The first hours are pure cuteness. Sonic runs in circles around the kitchen, slides across the tiles, tries to steal a sock and hides it under the couch. Shadow sits on the windowsill and watches. Sometimes his red stripes faintly glow when Sonic runs too close. It's not aggression, it's a warning. A small pulse of energy, and Sonic is gently tossed onto a pillow. He laughs like a child who thinks all of this is just a game. But if I'm going to raise them properly, I need space. I decide to build an adaptive training zone for them in the garage. Not a cage and not an enclosure, but an environment where speed and power can develop. I cover the floor with rubber tiles. Along the perimeter, I install soft barriers. In the center, a round platform for acceleration. For Sonic, tunnels, inclined ramps, and hanging rings. For Shadow, metal panels, weighted blocks, and a darkened concentration zone. While they sleep, I finish the setup. Sonic curls up in a box of towels. Shadow lies straight, as if meditating. Even in his sleep, his quills tremble slightly. The contrast between them is felt even in silence. One is energy, the other is control. When they step into the new zone, everything changes. Sonic first carefully touches the ramp, then disappears in a blue blur. He races around the circle, along the wall, almost touches the ceiling, and a second later appears behind me with a victorious smile. Cute? Yes, but already dangerously fast. Shadow doesn't rush. He walks up to a metal block and places his palm on it. The crimson glow intensifies. The block begins to tremble. The air around it seems to thicken. A small impulse, and the heavy piece of metal shifts a few centimeters. For the adult version, it's nothing. For a baby, colossal progress. And then the first crazy mood swing begins. Sonic accidentally gains too much speed and crashes into a stack of tires. Everything flies apart, dust rises, the noise echoes off the walls. For a second, it feels like the garage is destroyed. But out of the cloud jumps the little blue hedgehog with a tire around his neck like a lifebuoy, spinning and laughing. A moment later, Shadow, without changing his expression, snaps his fingers and the tire neatly drops to the floor. In the evening, they get tired at the same time. Sonic falls asleep right on my jacket, clutching it with his paws. Shadow sits nearby, like a guard. His eyes close last. In the silence, I understand one thing. This is only the beginning. Their power is barely noticeable for now, but their character is already forming. And tomorrow, the real training begins. The next day started much earlier than I had planned. I woke up not to an alarm clock, but to a patak of air literally moving through the room. Sonic was already racing down the hallway, accelerating from wall to wall as if testing the limits of the space. His steps were almost silent, just a faint whistle. Shadow stood by the window, silently watching the street. The red lines on his body glowed faintly. He wasn't moving, yet the sense of power coming from him felt far stronger than all of Sonic's speed combined. Before training, I decided to begin with discipline, with feeding. I sat down on the floor, took a small fork, and called them over. Sonic appeared instantly and sat in front of me, tapping his paw impatiently. Shadow approached slowly, calmly, without unnecessary movement. He didn't ask for food, he waited. The first dish was baked turkey, cut into small pieces. I carefully picked up one piece with a fork and brought it to Sonic. He sniffed it first, then cautiously bit it, and a second later was already reaching for the next one. I had to slow him down so he wouldn't eat everything at once. When I brought the fork to Shadow, he vnimatona looked at the food, then at me, and only then carefully took the piece without touching my fingers. He ate slowly, focused, as if even this was part of training. The second option was berries, strawberries, and blueberries. I wanted to add something sweet. When Sonic saw the bright colors, he literally jumped. I fed him one berry at a time with the fork, and each time he smiled happily, leaving juice stains on his muzzle. It was that exact contrast, incredible speed and absolute childlike innocence. Shadow showed no interest at first, but when I brought half a strawberry closer, he tried it. His gaze shifted slightly. He didn't smile, but a subtle tilt of his head meant the taste was approved. The third dish was spicy cheese, cut into small cubes. It was a test of reaction. Sonic ate his piece and a second later dashed off. He began racing around the room even faster than in the morning, knocking over pillows, running along the wall, and abruptly stopping in front of me with a wide grin. Shadow ate his piece and froze. The red lines glowed brighter, and the air around them seemed to tremble slightly. He didn't run, he concentrated the energy, directing it inward. After feeding, we moved to the garage. Today's training was more serious. I turned on a system of light markers that lit up at different points on the walls and ramps. Sonic's task was to touch them as fast as possible. At first, he got confused, crashed into the barriers a couple of times, but very quickly his movements became more precise. He stopped just running. He began calculating trajectory, choosing the angle of entry into turns, conserving steps. For Shadow, I prepared metal plates of different weights. His task was to move them with an energy impulse without touching them. At first, the plates only trembled. Then they slowly began sliding across the floor. With each repetition, his crimson glow became more stable. At one point, one of the plates lifted higher than necessary and fell down with a loud crash. Sonic stopped abruptly. Silence filled the garage, and in that very second, an unexpected shift in mood happened. Sonic walked over to Shadow and lightly bumped his shoulder, as if offering support. No words, just a gesture. Shadow looked away, but didn't step back. A small, almost invisible moment that carried more warmth than all their chaos, but a minute later, everything turned wild again. Sonic decided to test the limits of his speed and accelerated so hard that the patach of air knocked tools off the wall. A wrench fell downward. Shadow reacted instantly. A flash of crimson light stopped it in midair just centimeters from the floor. He carefully lowered it back into place without changing his expression. I realized this was no longer just about cute creatures. Their power was growing too fast. And this was only the second day. On the seventh day, I realized I couldn't delay it any longer. Their energy was building up, the rivalry growing denser. And if I didn't channel it into a controlled format, they would start a fight at the worst possible moment. I cleared the entire yard down to bare concrete, removed unnecessary objects, reinforced the fencing with metal sheets, and turned off anything that could distract them. Today would be real training. Hard, no games. We started with a warm-up. I gave Sonic a short distance, a straight corridor 30 meters long. No obstacles, just acceleration and a sharp stop on my command. The first dash was too aggressive. He failed to brake in time and slammed into the reinforced shield. The impact rolled dully across the metal. He pushed off, shook himself, and returned to the start. The second time, he began to control his stride. Not just speed, but the braking point. On the fifth attempt, he stopped exactly at the line, raising only a light swirl of dust. Shadow trained differently. I placed 3 metal plates of varying weight in front of him. His task was to lift them one by one, hold them in the air, and lower them smoothly. No sharp flashes, no shockwaves. The first plate rose abruptly and trembled. The second moved more smoothly. The third, the heaviest, made him clench his teeth. The red lines flared brighter. The air thickened, but the plate rose. He held it for several seconds and lowered it carefully. Not a single crack. Then I combined them. I activated a system of automatic barriers that rose from the ground chaotically. Sonic's task was to pass the route at speed. Shadow's task was to complicate it with energy impulses, without direct contact. Sonic dashed forward, weaving between rising panels. Suddenly, the air in front of him thickened. Shadow had created local resistance. Sonic almost lost tempo, but sharply changed his angle and slipped aside. This was already interaction. With each pass, the tension increased. Sonic accelerated harder, Shadow applied pressure more precisely. At one point, a panel rose a fraction too late, and Sonic leaped over it almost automatically, without slowing down. He landed and stopped sharply in the center of the yard. Heavy silence settled. I looked at them and said only one thing: enough training. Sonic smiled, but this time there was no playfulness in it, only challenge. Shadow stepped forward. The red lines glowed with steady light. They stood opposite each other on the bare concrete. No barriers, no tasks, just them. Sonic moved first. A blue dash sliced through the space, the air cracking from speed. He tried to flank, but Shadow anticipated the motion and released an energy impulse from the side. Sonic was thrown back, rolled, and instantly returned to attack. The second approach was lower, faster. His kick passed inches from Shadow's shoulder. Shadow responded not with speed, but with precision. A short flash, and the space around Sonic grew denser for a fraction of a second. His movement slowed. Not stopped, but thickened. It was enough for Shadow to deliver a direct palm strike to his torso. Sonic flew several meters, leaving a sliding mark across the concrete. He stood up. The smile was gone. Now he moved differently, not chaotically. He began changing rhythm, short bursts, feints, abrupt stops. He appeared behind Shadow, tried to grab him from the back, but a crimson field flared and a shockwave tore the distance apart. Dust rose in a column. The fight grew faster. Blue and red surges crossed, collided, repelled. One worked with speed, the other with control. Sonic managed to land a series of rapid strikes, forcing Shadow to step back for the first time. But Shadow sharply intensified his impulse, and the air around them seemed to compress. The shockwave threw them both in opposite directions. For several seconds, they lay there breathing heavily. Sonic rose first. Shadow followed. They stood opposite each other again. No anger, no shouting. Only the understanding that this was neither an end nor a victory. I stepped forward and stopped them with a gesture. There was no winner today, but there was a line, and they both felt it.